Hello everyone, welcome back. Hope you got a taste of the snacks or got a bag of it for your ride home. I'm eyeing on the broccoli ones. Our next session focus on partnerships, and that's one of the definite ingredients we need for our food bank. We will have a really dynamic session and also a bilingual session, so please have your earpieces ready. And the session will be hosted by Mariana Jiménez, Chief Executive Officer of Mexican Food Bank Network, BEMEX. And I will now turn the floor over to Mariana and her panelists. Please.
Hello, buenos días. How are you? Partnership is the new leadership. This phrase is one of the most powerful takeouts from my participation at COP28 last year. A small phrase that says so much and has inspired me to change my mindset from an individual vision of leadership to one that connects and involves a whole ecosystem towards compassion, action, change, and will lead us to success. On the last few days, we have learned that food banks, alongside with our partners, have a strategic role in the efforts to reduce food insecurity and climate change. And we have shown off our contribution in the pathway to food system resiliency. Forging strong, long-term, in-scale partnership is the key for progress. I'm Mariana Jiménez, and I'm the CEO of the Mexican Food Banking Network, BAMEX, and today I have the honor to be the moderator of this wonderful panel. Before we get started, I'm going to give you a couple of indications in my native language, Spanish. Primero que nada, quiero darles los buenos días. Gracias por estar aquí todavía. Les quiero pedir, por favor, que silencien sus teléfonos. Queremos tener toda su atención para que puedan aprovechar al máximo el contenido de este que es nuestro último panel. Segundo, y para conectar con este momento presente, les quiero pedir que, por favor, se sienten cómodamente, por favor, todos con sus pies, los dos pies pegados al suelo, los que alcancen. Su espalda bien pegada al respaldo de su silla. Muy bien, relajen los hombros, todos con los hombros relajados. Relajen su quijada. Hemos tenido una jornada difícil, complicada, con mucha información y vamos a respirar. Primero quiero que cierren sus ojos, si se sienten cómodos en hacerlo, pero no los cierren mucho porque no quiero que nadie se duerma. Si se sienten cómodos, y vamos a hacer 3 respiraciones profundas. Primero vamos a inhalar por la nariz, suave y profundo en 4 tiempos. Y después vamos a exhalar por la boca, suave y profundo, como si estuviéramos soplando la vela de un pastel, en 6 tiempos. ¿Están listos? Muy bien. Inhalen en 4 tiempos. Y exhalamos en 6 tiempos por la boca. Inhalen nuevamente. Exhalamos. Una vez más. Inhalamos. Y exhalamos en 6 tiempos. ¿Cómo se sienten? ¿Bien? ¿Relajados? ¿Concentrados? Muy bien. Estamos listos para empezar. Okay, back to English. This is going to be a Spanglish session. I'm honored to introduce our amazing and relaxed, hopefully relaxed panel of the day. Please welcome Tim Browne. He is the General Manager, ESG and General Counsel for Chobani. Welcome, Tim. Susan Catania, Head of Food Businesses Unit from Nestlé. Alexandra Coari, she is the Vice President, Capital Innovation and Global Initiatives for Refed. Stephen Lapidge, he's the CEO of End Food Waste Australia. Welcome. And finally, Michael Sunbola, Executive Director for Lagos Food Bank. And George Wright, he's the CEO of FareShare. Back to Spanish. Esta sesión la vamos a dividir en tres partes. En la primera parte, cada uno de nuestros speakers va a tener 3 minutos para compartirnos una charla rápida sobre una experiencia, un caso de éxito, una historia poderosa sobre una alianza notable. Cada uno va a tener 3 minutos para compartir su historia. Y en la segunda parte vamos a abrir el micrófono a la audiencia para que cada uno de ustedes, quien esté interesado, pueda compartir una historia de éxito. Tienen 2 minutos para hacerlo o para hacer alguna pregunta o algún comentario a alguno de nuestros panelistas. En la tercera parte vamos a cocinar un pastel y les voy a dar las instrucciones más tarde. Okay, so we're going to get started, and I'm going to ask Alexandra Coari, Vice President, Capital Innovation and Global Initiatives for Refed, to present us your flash talk. You have 3 minutes.
3 minutos. Okay, a ver. Wonderful to be here again. I'm going to chat with you all about the power of public-private partnerships, but from the U.S. experience. So at Refed, through the inspiration of the Courtauld Agreement in the UK and following the same target, measure, and act framework that Richard from RAP outlined yesterday on stage, our organization Refed, along with RAP and WWF and Cascadia, several years ago launched what is known as the Pacific Coast Food Waste Commitment, or PCFWC for short. That is a collection across the west coast of the US, including California, Oregon, and Washington, and also includes British Columbia in Canada. The theory of change behind the Pacific Coast Food Waste Commitment is really that pre-competitive collaboration by food businesses as well as local jurisdictions and governments is critical to reducing the food loss and waste that's happening in our country, as well as to accelerate the necessary solutions across prevention, rescue, and recycling. There's 3 main components to this public-private partnership. First is data reporting. Second is pre-competitive working groups. And third is the piloting of different solutions. So I'm actually going to start in reverse. So the food businesses that you see on stage behind me that are a part of the membership all participate in different working groups across a variety of topics where they can really come and share best practices and learn from each other. Additionally, they have the opportunity to work on a variety of piloting together where they get to learn. And those pilots really have been great case studies and inspiration for other food businesses that maybe are in the network that didn't participate or outside of the network and the rest of the ecosystem. So a few different pilots that I wanted to highlight as successes of this public-private partnership today. First, a couple of the retailers in the Pacific Coast Food Waste Commitment participated in the piloting of enhanced demand planning AI software with 2 solution providers named Fresh and Shelf Engine. Through the piloting of that technology, those retailers were able to see a reduction in their food waste by 15%, which was exciting. But additionally, what we really loved seeing was that over the first few weeks of the pilots, the retailers were actually able to recoup 100% of the costs of piloting those technologies. So it's truly a win-win-win in terms of great for the business, great for the technology providers, and also great for our collective mission to fight food waste. The second pilot I wanted to highlight was a flour manufacturer named Bob's Red Mill that is a member of the PCFWC. And they actually piloted a really non-technical high-tech, non-sexy solution, but was just as effective, if not more effective. They ran an employee engagement campaign where they brought together their warehouse employees to do some training around food waste, and then ultimately collected ideas from them. They collected more than 700 ideas of how to fight food waste within their warehouses and piloted just one, and that reduced food waste by 70%, which was incredible, and it really was just tightening a bolt on the manufacturing line. So it was a great solution, and really shows that you don't need technology all the time to fight food waste. And then lastly, one of the retailers named Rayleigh's, they actually were piloting expiration date management software, and they reduced their shrink by 15%. And then ultimately, because they had better perspective and understanding of what expiration dates and what products were really running on their timelines of shelf life, it actually grew the partnership with their donation partners even stronger because they had a better understanding of the product that was available. And then last but not least, what I will mention is going back to that data collection component of the public-private partnership. We believe that robust data collection is incredibly important in this fight against food loss and waste. So all of these businesses have been reporting to us that are a part of the membership since its beginning back in 2019. And in April of this year, we came out with a report. And it was the first time in the US that we're able to show progress towards the reduction in food loss and waste in a really substantial way. That report showed that those retailers that are a part of the membership were actually able to reduce the amount of unsold food in their operations by 25%, which of course means if you're having less unsold food, it's less waste in your operations. And excitingly, and I think relevant for this group, more than 20% increase in the amount of food that was being donated to their partners, and a 28% increase in the rate of food that was going to compost versus landfill. So that's a huge climate impact, and they were able to reduce their carbon footprint overall by 30%. So I hope through this explanation you're able to come to understand that this public-private partnership has been truly successful to date on the West Coast, and because of that, we're now expanding that nationally in the US to this US Food Waste Pact, and we're really excited to see what they're able to do in the fight against food loss and waste. Thanks.
Great, Alexandra. We were honored to be invited to this year's Food Loss and Waste Solutions Summit, and we witnessed the strong partnerships and coalition that you have in order to address food loss and waste, and I believe as you in the power of market, but also community-based approaches to solving today's biggest challenges. Great, thank you so much, Alexandra. And I want you to welcome George Wright. He's the CEO of FareShare. Welcome, John. Please share your story.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, even. I'm a bit of a baby in the food banking world. I've only been doing this just over a year. Prior to that, I spent 35 years in the food industry, half of it in manufacturing, mostly for Unilever, and half of it in retail for people like Tesco, Marks and Spencer's, and Coles in Australia. And one of the things I've learned coming over to food banking is it is the most difficult and complex part of the food system. Right? I'm in awe of everything people in this room have achieved. It's incredible what you've done. It's also the most competitive. Right? It is way more competitive than retail, I have to tell you, particularly in the UK. But the thing that really struck me is it sits out, we talked about food systems, it sits outside the food system in terms of the processes, the expertise, the tech, the funding. So we do the most difficult bit of the food system with the least resources. And that's actually something that we have to fundamentally affect. So we need to make it part of the system. And in the UK, it's not. There is lots of initiatives. There's lots of very good things going on. But the truth is, we lag a lot of the nations that are in this room in terms of our ability to redistribute food. But to be part of the system requires everybody to engage with it. It's government, it's industry bodies, it's farmers, it's charities, it's individuals, it's volunteers. And the theme I wanted to get across is we talk about, in the UK, the cost of living crisis. We talk about the environmental crisis. But do we treat it like a crisis, or do we treat it like a problem? And the reality is we treat it like a problem because we don't move fast enough. And we do our individual things. Every retailer does their own thing, every manufacturer, every charity. And the issue is, in a crisis, collaboration trumps competitiveness. That's what we need to achieve as a UK body. And therefore, we created an alliance, we created a partnership, and you'll see up here, this picture. Now, this picture at the centre of, you may notice, is His Majesty King Charles III and Queen Camilla, right? So they are the sponsors of the Coronation Food Project. But what you might not see in the rest of that picture is a host of industry leaders. So we've got about 10 national retailers in the UK. They're all in this picture. Right? We have some of the biggest manufacturers. We have some of the charities who would have considered themselves to be our competitors. Yeah? We have some of the beneficiaries. We have some of the people who are the recipients of the services in the front line. So this picture goes from the most disadvantaged society to the most powerful people, all in one room for the launch of the project. And in creating that alliance, what we're aiming to do is to build it into the system. So the food industry, under a group called the Institute of Grocery Distributors, the IGD in the UK, have created a small unit, a group of people who will provide the expertise and know-how to look at how we can extract more food from upstream in the supply chain. Because the big jeopardy we have in the UK is most of our food comes from retail, but retail is only 5% of the surplus. And as a retailer, we were all getting more efficient and we all managed to take it down. So what we're now doing is looking upstream, and we've pulled together this new group. It's called Alliance Food Sourcing, which is funded by the industry, and it's got industry people who are looking to extract more food and put in place the processes, the tech, the funding, and their expertise. So that's what we're trying to do to effect a new change. And the principal message I'd leave you with is, I talked earlier about everybody has a role to play. Not one person can address this, but if everybody does what they could, then the force of that could move mountains. Thank you.
And if I might, George, I want to rephrase a message that you sent us before the summit that really inspired me. No one person or body can solve the problem, but the combined force of our collective effort can potentially move mountains. Thank you so much. Next, please welcome Michael Sunbola. He's Executive Director for Lagos Food Bank. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. So, essentially for me, the entire journey of the Lagos Food Bank started back in 2016. And one of the key profound lessons I learned at the time was the fact that it was obvious, it was apparent that I had the vision, and I also had the passion to just want to make a difference. We had this whole challenge of food insecurity, back in Nigeria, and the fact that more than 70% of the population can't afford a healthy diet, and seeing the fact that, this challenge is so overwhelming. And one thing that was obvious at the time was that we had very scarce resources to take this challenge head on, right? But fast forward to 2019, something very significant happened. We had a very transformative partnership that saw the passion, the vision, and, decided to go on this journey with us. The entire story of this transformative partnership would not make any, would not be, I can't really give a context to it if I don't really talk about this, right? The fact that this partner came along the line and also invested in this vision taught us how to go about this. And this partner is none but the Global Food Banking Network. Please, a round of applause to the Global Food Banking Network. For us, this is our own true story. And the fact that, and on this foundation, we're able to build, far more collaborative partnership with other corporate partners. And over the time, we're able to at least partner with at least 500 corporate organizations who have helped us to scale our impact and also help us reach as many as possible. So out of which I'll probably be able to just mention a few. Rentoki Boyka, one of the problem an average food banker or that runs a warehouse would face is pest control. We were able to have this partnership that offers services in worth thousands of dollars to us free of charge. We partnered with the Australian High Commission who supported the backyard farming program to help our beneficiaries feed themselves sustainably. We partner with the Aliko Dangote Foundation, who happens to be the richest man in Africa, and partnered with us to reach thousands of vulnerable families with grains. Partnered with Citibank. Cornell University developed a cutting-edge tech for us that helps us manage our teaming population of volunteers, over 26,000 of them, and it's actually been very helpful to manage that number of people. And a whole lot of partnerships that we've been able to foster to help bring this vision into reality. And one thing that is very profound for me is the fact that the problems will continue to be, huge, but I'm really drawn to this aphorism that says that together we can do a whole lot more. And if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And for me, that is really profound, and that is the essence of partnership, and that's what partnership really helps us to achieve at Lagos Food Bank. Thank you.
Also a phrase from Michael: no single organization can solve hunger alone, but together we can definitely create lasting transformative change. Thank you so much, Michael. Susan, she's head of food businesses unit in Oceania for Nestlé. Thank you so much, Susan, for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. Nestlé has partnered with and worked with Food Bank in Australia for many years, and we realise that the food relief that can be provided is really based on what's available. And that means any home could receive a mix of items that they may not know what to do with, or certainly be able to turn into a healthy meal for their family. And that's an issue that we knew we could help solve. From this simple truth, a few years ago, we had an idea of a recipe base that could make a great tasting meal no matter what ingredients you got in your food relief box. And we then took from that the idea of a 2021 first ever custom designed developed product for Food Bank Australia, the Maggi Hardy one-pot casserole, which you can see on your screen. Now, casseroles in Australia and New Zealand, they've always been a bit of an Aussie classic. Our recipe base was really designed so that you could have a one-pot meal, which was very simple and convenient, but also to create a very versatile recipe and a very nutritious recipe that the whole family would love. So not lots of spices or lots of really unique flavours that would maybe, my son may not want to eat. Now, this product really was born out of true collaboration. It was an effort of all our partners, but it was kicked off by simply reaching out to each of the partners that work with us in our regular retail products. So I do want to call out, there was a dozen partners that we had to get on board for this product. Olam Spices, Graincorp Foods, Fonterra, GS Hall, Dominion Salt, New Zealand Sugar, Tate & Lyle, Boxer & Co, Huhtamaki, Label Makers, OG Fibre Solutions, and of course Nestlé. So a real example where compassion overtakes the need for competition. We all came together, and with the support of their contributions, Nestlé both developed and manufactured this product in our Auckland factory that we donate through to Food Bank. The recipe allows the cook at home to make a meal out of any combination of vegetables or proteins. There's no specific recipe, so super versatile, and allows you to make a meal for up to 6 people. So instead of most recipes in supermarkets being 2 to 4, a much bigger meal, a much bigger feed. So since its creation in 2021, we've donated more than 4 million meals, so on average about 1.2 meals a year. Last year we increased it to 1.7 because there was a real need with the inflationary time in Australia. I'm really proud of all the people that came together, obviously Nestlé Australia, but not just that, Brianna and the Food Bank team and all our partners, because this really comes from people power, which is passionate people with a purpose, and Brianna and I were talking about that just earlier. And persistent people though, so my team are already asking what's next and what else we can do. And we're actually exploring a retail product that can help people in their homes reduce their food waste, but through that purchase can also help provide some support to food bank, so curing a little bit of food waste and food insecurity at the same time. In fact, we recently undertook some consumer research, and one of the top motivations for consumers is helping those in need, so we know we're onto something here. But in the meantime, Brianna, you had our commitment. Food bank collaboration will continue. We'll support the humble casserole that we have available and we'll help close that gap. So thank you very much.
Nestlé is such a great donor, is one of our main donors actually in Mexico. Only in 2022 and 2023, we received 2.5 million kilos of food that benefit more than 200,000 Mexicans in food insecurity. Thank you for trusting food banks. And now is the turn of Tim Browne. He is the General Manager of in ESG and General Counsel for Chobani. Welcome, Tim. Sorry.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. I really feel quite privileged being here amongst the true food banking and food relief experts. It's been great learning across the last 2 days, and at Chobani we'll certainly take a lot of learnings home. For those, and I'm conscious this is a really truly global audience that aren't truly aware of Chobani, we're a yogurt manufacturer. We make delicious, nutritious, natural, and we like to think accessible products. We have a manufacturing in Dandenong in Victoria, which is in Melbourne, and I heard commentary earlier that Sydney was a much better city, and we'll have that conversation later. We're primarily headquartered in the US. We were founded in the US by Hamdi Ulukaya, who was a migrant from Turkey, and he founded our company on the basis that business can be a force for good, and our obligation is not solely to shareholders and to those who might otherwise derive an income from business, but we have a responsibility to our communities and to those in need. Fast forward a number of years, we founded our business in Australia in 2012, and we have been committed to that purpose in the very same way. And the reason I'm here today is I've been invited by Food Bank Australia and Food Bank Victoria to talk a little bit about our partnership with those two great organisations. And in fact, our partnership with Food Bank is almost as old as we are ourselves. We have, and like many manufacturers, I'm not suggesting we're unique in this regard, we've donated our short-coated product ever since we existed. And we're really conscious that dairy and yogurt in particular are often seen as luxury items for those who might otherwise go without. It's nutritionally dense. Obviously, there's calcium and high protein. So that's something we're really proud of. But what we think distinguishes us a little bit is we sort of really doubled down in that space. And when COVID hit as a crisis, and I'm aware other manufacturers pulled back on their donations, we doubled down. And we committed to donating fresh stock, 10 pallets a week, which is a lot of yogurt, to those in need, making sure that we took and I'm going to quote Browne here, but we took the surprise out of Food Bank's supply chain. We ensured that they had certainty and that stock was going to be available each and every week so they could distribute through their agencies. If you look at our slide, this is just a little bit of an example of some of the things we have done with Food Bank, both locally and nationally, and I'll talk to each of them. It's on my top left, and I assume it's mirrored for everyone. But those in the yellow vest, I guess the example we're trying to speak to here is that volunteering is just so powerful, and I understand that it might be at times received by food banks and other charitable organisations as a bit of an administrative burden, but it's a really great way to connect with your food manufacturing partners. So don't underestimate the power that has with organisations. The specific initiative there was during and around COVID. Obviously, that was a really acute time of crisis, and that food insecurity was particularly severe in and around our local Dandenong area, which is statistically a high needs area, and we certainly have a commitment to play a role in and around Dandenong. So Food Bank came to us and they said, hey, you've got this great world-class food and yogurt manufacturing facility, but what are you doing on the weekends? And yeah, we operate 24/7, but yes, we do have idle time throughout various periods. So we set up a drive-through food relief experience, which enabled those in need to drive up, no questions asked, and we had queues around the corner, which speaks to sort of the dire need. And we delivered meals, we delivered fresh fruit and veg and pantry staples, and of course, delicious yogurt to those in need. And we've done that a couple of times with Food Bank. And I guess the example there is just ask your food manufacturer, what have you guys got that we might not be thinking about? Think outside the box. Top right-hand corner, again, fully funded and fully volunteered and staffed by our staff at Chobani who are really passionate in this space. We said to Food Bank, we said, hey, look, we've got a commitment to deliver in and around our community. We know that it's an area of disadvantage. How can you help us deliver on that purpose? So through their local needs assessment, Food Bank established that a lot of families weren't reaching out to food relief agencies. We know there's stigma attached. I don't need to tell you guys that. We're very aware we're not experts in the field, so we're relying, and I'm certainly more aware after the last 2 days, so we're relying on Food Bank to help us deliver essential food and to local communities. So you'll see in those markets there, what we did was we created through safe environments, local schools and relief agencies, we created just a standard community market, but it was invite only. And at that market, we were able to deliver fresh fruit and veg to those in need. And again, lots of Chobani yogurt and pantry staples. But what that was it created a really safe, dignified environment where those in need were able to turn up and just have an ordinary shopping experience without the stigma and other difficulties that might ordinarily attach. Down the bottom left-hand corner, I think I've spoken about it again, but as I said, don't underestimate the power of volunteering. It's something that's really powerful for our team. We've got the philosophy that volunteering is always on. It's not something you need to fill out a form and go and do or speak to your manager. You manage your own time, and as and when we've got these always on volunteering opportunities, you're certainly welcome to make the most of them. And last, but certainly not least, and I'm conscious of time, I heard from Susan talking about that awesome collaboration they had on a product perspective. Consumer-facing promotions are obviously those that are truly powerful, and we're really, really proud of our Food Bank fundraising SKU. I told the comms guys not to put my photo in there, but they willfully disregarded me. What we did in this campaign, we leaned into both our supply chain, we leaned into Food Bank as a food relief expert, and we also leaned into our retailer, Woolworths, who supported us incrementally here. What we were able to create was a delicious, national, nutritious product. As in some of our favourite flavours, we've got passion fruit and we've got strawberry. And for every tub of that product that was sold, we're able to donate through Woolworths, again, one of our major retailers, and also Chobani. We're able to donate 6 meals, or the equivalent thereof, to those in need. So all the consumer had to do was a really unique fundraising mechanism. All they had to do was walk in and buy their weekly pot of delicious yogurt, and we did the rest. We procured the donation for them, and we donated those 6 meals to those in need. And as I said, and Susan touched on it, we reached out to our supply chain and said, how can you help? We talked to our milk providers, we talked to obviously our fruit prep providers, transport providers, packaging providers, and they all just willingly chipped in and provided things either FOC or at cost. And again, it was just a question of asking. So we're really proud of that initiative. It ran for 6 months this year. Bit of a spoiler alert, it is sort of embargoed, but I can say we donated the equivalent of over 3 million meals to those in need here in Australia, and it's something we're truly proud of. So, and I am conscious of time, but what I'll just leave you with is, again, as a food manufacturer, our role is to help you with your supply chain and take that surprise out of it. But as food bankers, perhaps, I guess, work with us to help you. Let's think innovatively, let's think of new solutions, let's use our assets and our facilities in ways you might not have otherwise thought about. And I guess ultimately just ask. The worst that can happen is someone might say no.
Thank you so much, Tim. Chobani is certainly making great efforts to address food insecurity through the food banking network. Only in Mexico, Chobani has donated more than 500 tons that have benefited 12 food banks and supported with more than 6 tons of food during the emergency in Acapulco after Hurricane Otis. Thank you so much. And next, we're going to listen to Stephen Lapidge's story. He's the CEO of End Food Waste Australia. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you, Mariana. I'd like to, first of all, thank the organisers for allowing our inclusion in this amazing program. And I'd also like to acknowledge that we have many of our partners in this room today, too many to mention, but we always thank you for being part of the organisation. So we are End Food Waste Australia. We started life in 2018, and that started as a $120 million joint venture over 10 years. If I can, I guess, give one of my recommendations for the success in building national partnerships is start with a solid funding base, 10 years, and good governance, and then everything else can flow after that. What we've been able to do with the CRC, which is focused on industry R&D or research and development, is build out from that. So from it, we've built out the Australian Food Pact, which is one of the larger voluntary agreements operating around the country, and we thank WRAP, our key partner in that voluntary agreement. That agreement itself has enabled 190 million meals being donated just over the last 2 years to food rescue. We've also done a lot of sector action plans to target all the hotspots of food waste in Australia, and we continue on with that process. We have recently established a policy pillar, and shortly, in the coming months, we will launch a new nationwide consumer behaviour change campaign, and that's a really exciting time for us. Australians, unfortunately, are still one of the worst food wasters when it comes to household food waste, and that's something we absolutely need to address if we've got any chance of halving food waste by 2030. One partnership I'd really like to talk about is a partnership we've had with Foodbank Australia, and that is around food donation tax incentives. Foodbank went to the Australian government many years ago saying, let's do something about incentivising food donation. And I think the comment was, well, let's build the business case around that. We've been able to do that with Foodbank and other partners, state government partners, Woolworths, with KPMG in particular. And with that, we've been able to present that back to the government recently, and it's now been introduced into the Senate as a private member's bill and is now before a Senate Select Committee. It was without that partnership, we wouldn't have got to where we are so quickly. And it's a great example of what setting a good foundation can do. You can always build out from it, and then you can always create more impact. So thank you, and yeah, look forward to a couple of weeks seeing a nationwide consumer behaviour change being launched, completely original, in Australia. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Definitely voluntary agreements are making a huge difference all over the world. Thank you. Thanks to the partnership alongside with RAP, we are achieving great goals. Also in Mexico, we have the first Latin America voluntary agreement, Pacto por la Comida, that has had great outcomes. Thank you so much. Well, for the second part of this session, I believe that you all must have great stories and questions and comments to our speakers. So we're going to open the mic. John, do we have a chance to open the mic for 3 or 4 people from the audience? 3, okay. So if you want to raise your hand, if you want to participate with a comment, a question, or a 2-minute flash story, thank you.
Buenos días, soy Angie Santamaría de la Red de Bancos de Alimentos en Colombia. Mi pregunta es para la persona de Nestlé sobre el desarrollo del producto que tienen actualmente con la combinación de varias materias primas. En Colombia estamos en este momento desarrollando 2 alimentos biofortificados a partir del desarrollo o de la obtención de las materias que obtenemos de recuperación de excedentes agrícolas. Y uno de los componentes más importantes es la sostenibilidad, ¿sí? ¿Cómo han hecho ustedes para, a través de la recuperación de esos alimentos, lograr que el producto sea sostenible a largo plazo, ¿sí? Que no se convierta en un producto que se desarrolla y se queda en el desarrollo, sino que se logre incorporar en los programas del Banco de Alimentos, pero también tal vez comercializar? Quiero conocer como un poco cómo ha sido esa experiencia en el marco de la sostenibilidad del desarrollo del producto. Gracias.
Great question. Is it okay if I answer in English? Because my Spanish is terrible. So a really good question. I think for Nestlé, really, sustainability is a key pillar of us. We've got a lot of commitments for 2025 that are coming very quickly. And we don't treat anything we do for Foodbank any different. So if we've got a commitment on our retail products for packaging, recyclability, ingredient sourcing, carbon, etc., we do all the same things. So yes, it incurs additional costs in producing, in sourcing, but for us it's really important that it's sustainable in whatever we do. So a lot of the other suppliers that and our partners in this product are locally sourced. The packaging is recyclable. The factory is run on renewable electricity. The factory is in New Zealand, and so we partner with this product in only Australia and New Zealand. And so any other initiatives we did, we wouldn't be sending this product to Mexico, for example. Our Mexico would create a team for that part of the world. So I think it's just being really true to, if sustainability is so important in an organisation, how do you make sure it threads through everything you do, and understand that if there's an increased cost of doing that, that it's worth it because it's the principles of the organisation. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Another question? Story? Are you awake?
Thank you for
Thank you.
generously sharing all your insights and stories. And forging these relationships, what do you think has worked in maintaining and keeping your private partners engaged and committed in your programs?
George?
A great question. Actually, the biggest single thing that has influenced some of the people I deal with is taking them to the very front line of the charities. So I have a case recently. We have an industry body that heads up all the retailers, so it's the most powerful group in the UK. Their president is the CEO of the second largest retailer. And everybody deals with this at a strategic level, but he came with me to a school club to see firsthand children accessing the food that we had recovered. And it changed his perspective. It changed it from being a business problem. And he was a very committed person, but he said to me, I get this now, right? I understand now why you're talking about, why you're doing what you're doing, because it goes more beyond the ESG strategy, the report and the annual report. It personalizes it. He could see firsthand what the sort of life those children were leading. So, and I'm trying to do this with all the senior leaders in the industry, is get them to the front line. I did it with someone who owns the biggest manufacturer in the UK. He's now our biggest donor. So there is the rational, how do we help them with their business strategy? How do we help them with their annual report, their impact statements, their reduction in waste? All of that's important. But bringing it home in terms of these are the people that are helping, these are the people that are doing it tough, these are the things that, this is the impact this food has, helping people get education, helping people get back on their feet. That's the thing that makes it really sticky.
Stephen?
Yeah, I think we've got over 100 partners now, and really the key to that partnership is honest and timely feedback is one of the key feedbacks we get. And we do that. The news isn't always good. Leverage rates and so on. Universities are a part of the organisation to get research dollars. So, you know, the leverage rates aren't always what they need. But as long as we're honest and make sure that they're, you know, clear on what the returns are, how we're tracking, what the impact is, what the overall aims of the organisation are, then, you know, I think you're on a really solid foundation. And do that from the start, because otherwise, you know, it can go off track before you realise it.
Great.
One of the or two things that I would say to that question, specific to the public-private partnership that I mentioned in my speech. First, I think, you know, not judging those members or those food businesses who you're partnering with. Everybody comes into the partnership at a different point of their food loss and waste journey. And so respecting that and, you know, allowing them to find their own path, I think has been really fruitful. And then additionally, in any experience where you're asking something of a partner, make sure that you're able to return the same amount of value back to them. For this, you know, example, we require a lot of data reporting from the businesses, but in exchange, we provide custom roadmaps for those businesses that are anonymized to show them where they stack up versus their competitors. And so that is, I think, a real value add to them, which makes the amount of energy they spend in data collection worthwhile for them. So thinking about that fair exchange is really important as well.
So important. Yes, we have time for one other question. Gabby?
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this wonderful insight. It's so empowering listening to you and your experiences. Congratulations, Mariana. Felicidades. And my question is, how do you see in the future these partnerships? How do you see these partnerships in 10 years? And which would be the path that we should follow to accelerate the impact of these partnerships? If would be more sustainability work or technology or community engagement. So how do you see in the future, and which would be the specific path we should follow to have real impact in what we do specifically as food bankers? Thank you.
Maybe a thought, for me, the biggest opportunity is awareness. And I think awareness and just asking the question. I think I love what Tim said there. But it starts with awareness, because there's so many, to use a phrase, haves that could help the have-nots, but how do you connect them? And that's why for us, it's like we can support Food Bank all we like, but how do we get more people that have so much of abundance of fortune, whether it be health, happiness, financial, that could help provide more support to the people that don't. And I think that comes through bridging the gap of awareness. So a lot of what Stephen's talked about and what he's working on, what Food Bank does, it's creating that knowledge. Because when we talk to consumers, when we make them aware and when they understand, they're really passionate about leaning in. So I think it's how Food Bank and manufacturers work together to really drive the awareness, drive the understanding and the simplicity of action we can take. And linked to that is asking the question, to Tim's point, because there's so much we can do together. And if we can do it together with retail partners, manufacturers, non-for-profit, food banking networks, that's where, when you come together, you can make a really big scalable impact versus smaller. So I think they're the two things, awareness and really asking the question, because the answer could only be no. But there's so much that can come from just asking.
More context I can give to that is the fact that looking into the future, like how do we see these partnerships? What are the trajectory that one might probably look into in considering and seeing those partnerships, coming forward to create sustainability, basically. So I would still lean towards the fact that one should continue to create that value for the partners. In West Africa, for instance, what mainly drives, and I stand to be corrected, but what mainly drives partnership is, for most of these corporates, they are more about what do we also get back? And we see that in this instance, we have positioned ourselves in such a way that we tell them we want to help you reduce the burden of organizing CSR activities, because a whole lot of these corporates want to go into the communities themselves to do it. And we tell them, why stress yourself when we have the capacity, the logistics, and enough team to help you arrange this and help you reach people. So you come in not feeling any stress, you're able to make impact, you're able to engage your staff, and also create the impact you want. So creating that value, giving them that value, irrespective, right, would make them lean towards coming back and also continue to partner with you in creating that part for sustainability. And that has worked for us, and it still continues to work for us.
I would hope, looking forward 10 years, that every partnership looks really different. And I know resources are always going to be a constraint in the food banking environment, but the partnership Food Bank might have with Chobani is going to be very different to a partnership that we'll have with Nestlé, because different products, different supply chains, and ultimately different ESG needs on our side. So to the extent you can engage in dialogue, understand what is expected or certainly appreciated from a food manufacturer, and think innovatively, think outside the box. And again, as I said, resources are always going to be a constraint, but the one-size-fits-all models just, it's not always going to work in every environment. So yeah, thank you.
Stephen, and after that, George.
I was just going to add that the 2030 goals, Sustainable Development Goals, are looming large. We've only got just over 5 years. Of course, zero hunger and halving food waste go hand in hand. Why I'm more focused on the ending food waste angle. I think every country that is really trying to achieve that target needs to be looking at a national public-private partnership. There isn't a one-size-fits-all. There's many different models out there that have been successful or are being successful, but there's plenty of people out there that are willing to provide some guidance and support to help you get set up. So, call out and let us know if we can be of any help.
Just a quick thought, which is maybe an aspiration, but if food banking becomes part of the food system, then it goes from being something that, not that it's special if you do it, but it's a problem if you don't, because it should be business as usual.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your participation. Well, for the final activity, as I was saying earlier, we're going to bake a cake, and just to make myself very clear, I'm going to say the instructions in Spanish. Thank you. Bueno, empezamos. Ya. Gracias. Bueno, yo soy nutrióloga, he sido banquera de alimentos por los últimos 18 años y amo la comida. Entonces, muchas de las cosas que hago y digo se relacionan con la comida y creo que esta actividad viene muy bien para concluir y sacar el mejor contenido de esta sesión. Y para ello quiero que se imaginen el pastel más delicioso que han probado en su vida, el más rico. Puede ser de chocolate, puede ser de queso. El pastel más rico, su pastel favorito. Este pastel solamente puede tener 3 ingredientes. Los ingredientes que no le pueden faltar al pastel más delicioso que hayan probado en su vida, que este pastel es el pastel de las alianzas estratégicas. ¿Cuáles son los 3 ingredientes que no le pueden faltar a esta receta para hacer la receta perfecta? Pueden escanear el código QR e ir subiendo sus 3 ingredientes a esta plataforma para que entonces tengamos todos una receta que nos podamos llevar y aplicar en nuestras organizaciones, en nuestros bancos de alimentos, en nuestras empresas y poder aplicar todo el conocimiento que hemos recibido el día de hoy a la práctica. Vamos leyendo algunos de ellos. Comunicación, respeto, confianza, amo el Ubuntu, transparencia. Are you participating? Ubuntu means we are, I am because we are.
Oh, I like it. Thank you.
Respeto, objetivos en común, accountability, muy importante, amor, wow, datos, empatía, al parecer confianza, transparencia y comunicación son de los ingredientes más importantes. ¿Qué opinan ustedes? Do you agree? Definitely.
Trust.
Muy bien. Levanten la mano cuando ya hayan terminado de subir sus ingredientes, por favor. Muy bien. Todavía nos faltan algunos, pero creo que sí, definitivamente confianza, transparencia, comunicación, visión. If you can take just one ingredient to make the perfect recipe, what would it be, Michael? Just one.
So what I would take that resonates a whole lot with me is accountability. A whole lot of, partnership thrives a whole lot on accountability, and the fact that one is able to share the real-time value of how the resources that have been entrusted to such purpose is being used and how it's impacting life, and giving that real account of how that works, how it has impacted lives. Yes, so goes a long way for me, and I think they go hand in hand with trust, basically. So accountability.
Alex?
I would say transparency. I think we're all out there, trying to fight the good fight. Our work is needed, but we're not always going to succeed. Some of our innovations and ideas, might need to be tweaked, and I think having that clear transparency and openness with our partners and within our organizations is super critical in order to make sure that we're learning from what we're doing and that we're not losing steam and we're able to continue ahead. But we shouldn't have fear of, getting things wrong, but progress. It's all about progress, not perfection. So I think transparency is a big part of that.
Definitely. George?
Ambition, scale, and speed. It is a crisis. So are we moving quickly enough and are we doing enough? And I think we've seen this week we're doing some great stuff, but as a collective global force, not just GFN, but the whole food industry, the whole government industry, the answer is no.
My word would be value squared. So value is in how does everyone in the partnership get value, being the consumer, the end user, the manufacturer, the GFN, etc. But then also values. How do you respect the values of all the partners? Because without that, that's what connects you. So I think value and values.
I've never seen a cake with quite so many ingredients, so I'd be very curious to see how this might taste. I would choose reciprocity. I think we've sort of spoken about ensuring that the relationships are mutually beneficial and that there are outcomes being achieved throughout the entire supply chain. And as I've sort of spoken about earlier, innovation. Like, let's think creatively. This is a huge issue. It's not a new issue, but it's one that we're still struggling to solve. So to the extent we can work across the broader supply chain with various partners and be innovative in our solutions, I think that'll go a long way to hopefully solving.
Stephen.
For me, it would be what I mentioned before, trust and transparency, which is built on good, positive feedback loops.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias a todos. Creo que tenemos la receta perfecta que seguramente estará evolucionando con el tiempo. Como siempre, todos los cambios nos obligan y nos llevan a estar cambiando nuestra forma de pensar, nuestra forma de relacionarnos, nuestra forma de interactuar con nuestros grupos de interés. Espero que el contenido de esta sesión haya sido de mucho valor para ustedes y para ustedes también, nuestros panelistas. Démosles un fuerte aplauso a nuestros panelistas por todo el valor que hoy han agregado a esta sesión. Que tengan un excelente día y que sea un cierre maravilloso de este Summit. Muchísimas gracias.